included by that anonymous guy online about there's a shir by an unfortunate rabbi who teaches in yeshiva, and they put his shirim online. I could just say that I felt his approach to Har Bayis issues was very callous, extremely callous. Why? He was telling people stay off of Har Bayis. I think that's the title of the shir, stay off of Har Bayis. And halfway through the shir, he asked the guys, I know of no books downstairs. Apparently he's referring to the base medrash. He was giving shir in a classroom above the base medrash. None of those books I've ever seen extol or talk about how important it is to go to Har Bayis to daven. He's not familiar with it. It's not in the literature at all. Well, who talks about going to Har Bayis to daven? Right? Well, indeed, if all you learn is certain yeshiva sugyas in certain gemaras and Mishnah Berurah, you will not find anything about how good it is to go daven Har Bayis. However, if you would minimally study Tanakh, and just like the Parsha, with just an eye on what was actually being said. First, if you study Sefer Devarim, you would understand how important it is to seek out the place where God shall choose and go, and why it's important to have a central place of prayer. Even if you're not going to be able to sacrifice, it's important to seek God out. Mani kirvada Elokim li tov, right? David HaMelech says, it's good for me to be close to Hashem. David HaMelech lived in a time where the Beis HaMikdash had yet to be built. If you wanted to go do communal sacrifice, you had to go to Givon. In Jerusalem, there was no temple. David HaMelech resided in Jerusalem. And how many Psalms have this theme that David HaMelech was seeking out just to go live, just to go be in God's house and be close to God? I'll give you one example. David Hashem Ori V'yishi. What is David's request? Achas sha'alti meith Hashem otha avakesh. Shivti b'veith Hashem kol yamei chayai. Lahazot b'no'am Hashem ulvaker b'heichalo. Ki yispenim b'suko b'yom yasti. B'tzur Yeromeni. All those references. David HaMelech just wanted to get close to God. He could have offered sacrifice all he wanted to. He could have gone to Givon. Says he put Quantum in charge, and he did offer sacrifice. First, he offered sacrifice where he put the Ark of Covenant, and then he found the actual place of Machon Mikdash and put him Mizbeach there and offered sacrifice. But that wasn't God's place yet, because he had yet to build a temple. So you can make this mistake, like some do. Hold on a second. Someone's joining us. Okay. I'll take a digression to explain this thing. The Megillas Esther. You guys know what Sefer Megillas Esther is? No, Megillas Esther is a book of the Bible. Here's how it goes. Rambam has Sefer Mitzvos, right? You guys read Sefer Mitzvos yet? Go ahead and read it. Okay. It's good to read Sefer Mitzvos. It's the introduction to the Yad HaChazaka. And I guess you have to compare the translations. Rav Kapach's translation is now available online. There's also a classic translation. There's a few. Rav Heller's translation, the classic translation, the Ibn Tibon translation that they print usually with the Rambams. And then the Ramban has his Hasagas on it.
Yeah.
Okay. The Ramban says, the Rambam left things off. I don't know how he counts the mitzvahs, this big 613. So here's the assays he left off. And the fifth assay that the Nachmanides claims that Maimonides left off is the commandment to settle the land of Israel. Rambam doesn't mention that there's a commandment to settle the land of Israel. And Nachmanides brings, the verses in the Torah seem to say it. That's how it's understood in the Medrashei Halacha. And there's certain Afkaminas LaHalacha. So it's a good question on the Rambam. However, and this is funny, the Rambam would agree to all the kashas that the Ramban gave. All those halachas, the Rambam paskin them. He brought these as halacha. And if you look at the Rambam already, the first four mitzvahs that the Rambam left off, the Rambam didn't put them on the list of mitzvahs, not one of the big 613, but he agrees la halacha that that's the halacha. So obviously Rambam has a technical reason for leaving off these mitzvahs. He didn't. It's just a technical way of counting. The Megillas Esther, quote unquote, defends the Rambam. Why? The Megillas Esther was a great Rav in Spain before the expulsion. He passed away before the expulsion. And the Megillas Esther, he lived in the 1400s. So he wrote a defense, and his major argument that there's no mitzvah, why Maimonides did not count a mitzvah to settle the land of Israel, is because such a mitzvah only was in force during the high times of Joshua, David, and Solomon, when there was a temple and things were good. So that's when mitzvah. Since the Churban, no such mitzvah. Now the problem with such a defense is that Rambam never said such a thing. He doesn't hold of a halacha. Normally, we have Sefer Mitzvos and, let's say, the Chinuch mention what mitzvahs don't apply when the temple is not standing. We've seen a few examples, even with regards to these kachim, that you don't give machatzitz a shekel if there's no temple. You don't bring the kurim if there's no temple. That mitzvah does not apply. Mm-hmm. But nowhere does it say that the mitzvah, if whatever, not settling in Israel doesn't apply because the temple's been destroyed. That's a real chiddush. Matter of fact, It's almost so-called the defense of Rambam. Like I said, I put in scare quotes because Rambam would not agree with any of the things that the Megillas Esther there writes. As a matter of fact, the Rambam seems to patently disagree with what the Megillas Esther is saying. So it's not a defense. It would be a better defense just to say, like we were suggesting to the Ramban, Nachmanides, that Rambam doesn't count this on the list because it's technically not countable due to his rules. But he agrees with the halachic nafkaminas. A lot of times the question is this just a halacha, I guess, that falls into this category, or is it an actual one of the big 613? So the Megillas Esther says that this mitzvah is no longer applicable. There's been a Churban. I guess it's like a Christian idea. Now certain mitzvahs don't count anymore, and that's it. So getting back to this thing that this callous rabbi said because I mean that literally, Callous. Basically, because we have not had the Beis Hamikdash and people don't go there regularly to pray like they used to, so it's not in recent literature. You're correct. You will not find it in the Torah and the Beis Yosef and the Shulchan Aruch. The milas of going to the temple, the advantages of going to the temple or the place of the temple to pray. They didn't do it. It's not discussed. And you're not, like I said, you're not going to find the Mishnah Berurah. You're not going to find it in Nadarim, Nazar, and Sota over here. And if I don't know, did you can learn yeshivas the Masechtas at all? I don't think those are things. Nadarim sometimes they learn, but it's not something you find so often. Except people take a nether to bring a korban. Whoever that, it doesn't tell you why it's so good to go to God. So they've been disconnected. And it's because he obviously doesn't study Tehillim, or let's say familiarize himself with the halachas like we do in this introduction over here about going to Har Bayis to daven, that to him, there is no such thing as going to Har Bayis to daven. Yet he talks about how great it is to go to the Kotel. You know what they don't have in the classic literature? Kal v'chomer. The Kotel is nowhere in our classic literature going there to daven. And the whole thing about the Western Wall, the God's presence did not leave the Western Wall. It's talking about the Western Wall of the Heichal. It's a point on the Temple Mount. It's where the Western Wall of the Heichal used to stand. Above those stairs, if you're on the east side of the Temple Mount and you're right opposite the Dome of the Rock, you could see it. We have a picture in the back of your book over here. It shows you where that's referring to. It's not referring to the Western Wall. Okay, so and he's like saying it's great. It's the closest you get to God. Kal v'chomer. So if I could talk to him, or if he's listening out there, he should know. I don't know what base medrash you're referring to, but I feel very, very, very sorry for you if you've tried to look through all this farm in the base medrash and you could not find a single sefer there that tells you about how great it is to want to go to God's temple and pray, even if it's in the state of Churban. We saw the Rambam's letter. I was zochet to daven there in its state of Churban, so may Yiratzon I get to daven there when it's rebuilt. And he's totally disconnected. That's what happens. You could make such a blanket statement like it's not part of our religion. Everybody's off the derech. And by that I don't mean the Chal Shabbos and doing drugs and partying. I mean they're not on the right path to finding God. They're so distant. And this rachaknu me'al masenu, and there we can't go up. We can't go up. We can't appear. We can't bow down before you. Why? Because we've allowed this to happen. This rachaknu.
We would like to encourage our viewers to share these videos with friends and send in your responses. If you would like to obtain Birkon Nusach Eretz Yisrael or invite the rabbi for a speaking engagement, please email us at office@machonshilo.org.